small crowd today.
Early.
Early. Larry, we ready? We good?
We're good, sir.
You guys ready? Yes. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. As you know, I'm Sheriff Joe Lombardo of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Today we will release our final criminal investigative report on the 1 October mass casualty shooting. Joining me today are members of the force investigation team that put together this report. I commend them for their tireless work on this case and their commitment to provide as many answers from this investigation as possible. So to my right, which would be your left, on the left there standing is Sergeant Jerry McDonald, Lieutenant Eric Lloyd, and Detective Trevor Alsop. They will be available post-conference here when we get in the question and answer phase to assist if needed. It's with a certain sense of relief that I stand before you today to say that we have completed a monumental task. Even though the investigation has ended for LVMPD, the heaviest burden will be carried by the families of those who didn't come home and those who suffered life-changing injuries and psychological trauma. The investigators on this case have lived this event day by day for the past 10 months. Finding answers for the victims has been our investigators' sole goal to help bring closure for those affected and to move forward from this horrible event. No doubt this has taken an incredible toll on the victims of this incident, as it has our officers. Please know this is a criminal investigative report. I'll repeat that. Please know this is a criminal investigative report. This is not a review of every officer's actions or responses that took place that night. I mention this because over the last few months, as we released 1 October documents and body camera footage, many of you have asked for comment on the performance of specific employees during the incident. Those reviews are internal and are considered personnel matter and will not be released to the public. Likewise, there were many heroic actions taken by our officers, other first responders, and civilians on 1 October. Many of those actions were not specifically mentioned in the report. Again, this report is focused on the criminal investigation. The goal of our investigation all along has been to provide the public with the clearest picture possible of the events leading up to 1 October, as well as motive. What we have been able to answer are the questions of who, what, when, where, and how. What we have not been able to definitively answer is the why Stephen Paddock committed this act. Some of the differences between the preliminary report and this report are the sequence of events surrounding Paddock's stay at the Ogden condominiums. Additionally, in the preliminary report, we told a story of what happened on 1 October based on accounts from key persons. This report has those key person interviews summarized and included in the actual report. This includes civilians, mostly hotel employees of Mandalay Bay and other properties, police personnel, specific to those that made it to the 32nd floor and entered Paddock's room, and also detailing when officers Cook and Clarkson were struck by Paddock's gunfire upon their arrival at the venue. Also, a more detailed narrative as to the investigative responsibilities that various agencies and agency sections handled. Summaries of forensic analysis conducted by the FBI's lab in Quantico, Virginia, relating to DNA and firearms, identifying which guns were fired, an examination of every spent shell casing, and lastly, the comparison of the round recovered from Paddock's head to the firearm associated with his suicide. A lock interrogation summary, a financial analysis summary, and lastly, a suspectology section on Paddock to include interview summaries of his family and his doctor. Included in the appendix will be the actual lock interrogation reports from both rooms 135 and 134, and all autopsy-related documents from the Clark County Coroner's Office. By all accounts, Stephen Paddock was an unremarkable man whose movements leading up to October 1st didn't raise any suspicion. An interview with his doctor indicated signs of a troubled mind, but no troubling behavior that would trigger a call to law enforcement. Without a manifesto or even a note to answer questions, the totality of the information that has been gathered leaves us to only make an educated guess as to the motives of Stephen Paddock. Today is still incredibly difficult to try to comprehend this senseless act of violence. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, BAU, will issue its report that will go into detail about the psychopathology of Paddock. The report is anticipated to be released sometime at the end of the year. As for LVMPD, we are considering this investigation complete unless new information comes to light. Our responsibility to all 58 people who died on 1 October drove us to leave no stone unturned in order to find answers. I hope that the conclusion of this investigation provides some answers and some closure. The report will be available on LVMPD's website at lvmpd.com, which you can see immediately following the conclusion of this press conference. With that, I'll be happy to answer some questions.
Sheriff, one of the first questions, you just said you don't know motive?
Correct. Correct.
Was this terrorism?
Well, that depends on the definition. If you look at the state definition, it would fall within that aspect. If you look at the federal definition, no. As we all know, terrorism label is administered by the FBI. They have primacy.
It's also a matter of court.
Correct.
Filings. Does Las Vegas Police Department call this a terrorist act?
I would personally call it a terrorist act. It had an influence on a certain demographic of people intended to cause harm, to include injuries.
Any update on Mary Lou Danley and where your interaction with her stands?
No. We are completed with our interviews with her. We don't anticipate any future interviews, but they may still be in the preview of the FBI.
Is it possible Ms. Danley could be charged with a crime?
At this point, no.
Is it possible anybody related to this case to be charged with a crime helped in any way?
No, sir. We're not aware of any individual that we anticipate charging.
Sheriff, there are people in the release of records that we've received from the department over the last since May 2nd. There have been people who said that they encountered Mr. Paddock in the days before Mandalay Bay, and that he expressed opinions that seemed to suggest a motive. Would you address that?
Well, I don't know specifically what you're making reference to, Ken.
Restaurant, it sounded like anger, at government, at regulation.
Well, we're aware of some of the comments made to various individuals, but like I said, it's similar to the doctor's evaluation of him. None of those rose to the suspicion of law enforcement that would lead us to follow up and conduct an investigation, nor were we contacted by any individuals that had suspicion of Mr. Paddock.
You had mentioned that early on that he found Reason Street or Paddock on the street. You get a sense that that still holds true, that the motive of the shooting may be in part to his frustration
I think it's part and parcel. As you see in the final report, his financial analysis is provided. I had quoted earlier that I believe a substantial portion of his wealth had diminished in the previous year, which shows evident in the report, and that could have been a contributing factor.
Sheriff, you said reviews of officers' actions and activities were internal. Would
Correct.
you tell us if any officers have been disciplined for their actions?
Not at this point, Ken. We are conducting some active investigations.
In a broader sense, what's the status of Metro's review of the total response and things like how the communication system worked and other aspects of the response?
Well, the communication system is a matter of opinion. I personally believe the communication system worked good. In any critical incident, you are going to have an overwhelming convergence of individuals attempting to communicate via the system. And there's no system in the world that can handle that kind of volume in a short period of time. Quite often what has been quoted is communications issues between the officers, with the officers, and our dispatch center. But that is nothing more than officers talking over the top of each other. I personally believe the communication system was sound and robust.
Sheriff, we haven't seen the report. You have. Does it change timeline, which was so difficult to pin down at the beginning? Does it change timeline to finality? Are you confident? First of all, does it provide us a timeline?
Yes, it does. And there has been no changes since probably the later iterations of the press conferences. And I had admonished folks up front with that particular issue. And what people have to be aware of, it's still dynamic in close proximity of the event, and there were many disparate systems that we were receiving information from. So it takes a long time to compare those disparate systems and overlay the times on top of each other. But as far as the time associated with this carnage, I believe those times are pat.
So they'll be provided in this final report?
Yes.
We'll be able to see that?
Yes.
Those times are pat?
Yes. We're comfortable with our review of that.
How large was the investigation? How many investigators were on this month 1 to month?
You know what, Ricardo, I really wouldn't be able to give you I can give you an approximate answer on the size, but the scope of individual officers and participants is 1,000 plus. You know, just the volumes of the evidence that had to be reviewed, depictions of Mr. Paddock, images, video surveillance, and everything else that goes along with it, suspect and possible suspect statements, victim statements, witness statements, is voluminous. I had given you before in excess of 21,000 hours of video had to be reviewed, thousands of documents, and in particular, I'll take this opportunity. At the behest of the court system, we were mandated to provide body-worn camera footage and document footage as part of a public information request, and that has taken several thousand hours. I've had 12 full-time detectives put in place to provide that information on a weekly basis, so it's vast and extensive. So which is to be expected of something of this size. So.
Sheriff, on those records, body-worn cameras, 911 calls, police reports, etc., we're still anticipating receiving more next week?
Correct.
Do you have any indication how many more weeks we should anticipate?
You know, I was briefed, and granted, those things change on a daily basis, but my best anticipation would be 2 to 3 weeks. I anticipate maybe 2 to 3 more releases, and we should be at its finality. Now, granted, there's going to be some more requests comes in as you read through this final report. That's going to indicate a request for public information to better describe some of the things annotated in the report.
So you anticipate the report will raise other questions?
I'm sure.
Will you be able to answer them, or is this your final word?
Clarify your question.
We have asked questions at the release of various records, and we were told that the report was not complete yet.
Correct.
now that we have the report, will we be able to ask specific questions about specifics of the report and receive answers?
We anticipate we'll be able to provide you some solace in that and some answers, but I want to remind folks that even though I say the investigation on behalf of LVMPD is complete, it's still a living document. It's still continue to be an open investigation. We may receive information at a later date that we incorporate to that, and we have to keep that in mind in its finality. So there may be some information that you desire that we can't provide you because of that certain point of contention.
I want to ask you if you can characterize for us, this is a tough question to ask. You and we have been very much focused on one individual.
Correct.
And you tell us this one individual is the person who is responsible for and who carried out this act. How do you want him remembered as, how do you want to characterize him?
Well, it was very hard for me to even mention his name today. And you've heard me in previous press conferences, I would not mention his name because I don't want to give him any notoriety or be reminded of this individual. So to answer your question, it probably ends today. I don't want to remember this individual. I will remember the act and the victims, but I will not remember the suspect.
You were talking about closure at the beginning. Have you talked to the families of the survivors before the report was released about it being released today, or what kind of closure will they get from this living document?
I think that's open to interpretation of the family. And, you know, in any tragic event, especially a loss of life, or, you know, an example being a missing person, having those questions unanswered is very troublesome. In any loss of life, if you can have some modicum of closure, it helps you move through your psychology and your life in general. And now, I can't put myself in the minds of each one of those individual families. I don't know how they assimilate grief or deal with grief, but it is my role as a police agency and the head of the agency to try to give them some closure, and hopefully this report will do that.
Sheriff, this is probably in the report, but does the final report shed any more light on the materials that were found in his car?
Yes, it does.
And secondly, the sequence of events that led to him killing himself, did you guys pin down whether it was something that he was reacting to that caused him to stop the attack when he did?
That's open to interpretation. We all know that he was aware that there was security officials and maybe even police officials in close proximity of his room. So I don't know what went through his mind at that point to make that decision. So it's open to interpretation.
There are fringes on the internet that provided.
Can you say that again?
There are
Fringes on the internet, yeah.
Have provided conspiracies that spread widely on the internet. Did that cause any issues for the investigation?
No, no. You know, that's one of the things that we alluded to in the public information request of all the body-worn cameras and documents and stuff is quite often with the release of that information, you have people that believe they are smarter than you or keyboard cowboys that attempt to provide you information for you to change your investigation or your direction of your investigation. And we have to adapt to that because some of it might be viable information, but a lot of it's a waste of time. And so to answer your question, Ricardo, it did not change our directions in totality or in a majority of what we were doing in the present time. So our investigation direction was sound, and we believed in what we were doing was being successful.
And Sheriff, thanks for being so direct in response to these questions today. Will you please address assertions that there were conspiracies behind this and that there were second or multiple guns?
Absolutely. No conspiracies have been identified, and there's been no other gunmen identified other than Mr. Paddock.
Were there no other shootings at other casinos or properties in Las Vegas at the same time?
None. No other shootings that we have identified. You know, one of the explanations behind that, Ken, is just to provide you some clarification, is we had people evacuating the scene that sustained injuries. They had blood splatter, they had blood evidence upon their person, and as they entered other venues, it is believed by people that were already occupying the venues that they may have injuries within the venue that they evacuated to. So there was a belief there were shooters present on those properties. We quickly put those to bed because of the way we were trained to address multiple attack locations. But as you can imagine, the chaos associated with this.
Understood. We heard some pretty specific accounts.
Right. Well, even, you know, I'll be frank, I'll be right up front with you. Even my people gave specific accounts on the radio system, but that was based on third-party information. And that's why it's important to put those kind of things to bed as soon as possible. And I think we did a pretty good job in a short period of time of doing that.
Single shooter, no conspiracy.
Single shooter, no conspiracy.
He was not radicalized, right? Just to.
We have no knowledge of that.
Sheriff, I kind of stepped on your answer to my own question.
Okay.
Did you find out anything more about what was in his car and what he planned to do with it?
Yes. Oh, no. Oh, hold on. That was a two-part question. Yeah. So slow down there. Yes, we did. The report will better identify what was present in his vehicle, and as far as motive, it is unknown. Now, you could make an interpretation of was located in the vehicle. Was there an escape plan that he wanted to cause further harm at another location if, in fact, he escaped? Or was it just a matter of supplies he utilized during target practice? We're unable to answer that question.
We're going to find something in the report, a reference to the missing hard drive?
No, there is nothing in there because we have no idea where the hard drive is or when it was removed. We have information through his previous relationships that was a regular practice of him to remove hard drives from the computer systems that he utilized. For what reason, unknown. We all are aware that he had depictions of child pornography on his current computer. Maybe that was to get rid of that evidence. Who knows? But we have no idea when that particular hard drive was removed. It could have been years previously, or it could have been in short proximity of the shooting. But we have not located the missing hard drive.
The child pornography that was on his hard drive, his brother was arrested also for child pornography on his computer. Is there any kind of investigation that involves Stephen Paddock as well as his brother? Are you guys checking into those connections as well?
Yes, sir, we are.
Sheriff, one other. It's probably the kind of question you anticipated. Could this happen again, and what has changed? What would you do to prevent it?
Well, that's a pretty good question, Ken. The question is, could this happen again? Yes, absolutely it could happen again. By the grace of God, it doesn't. And, you know, one thing I've always said as the head of the law enforcement agency, you can what if till the cows come home. You know, you can't prevent every act of evil in your toolkit. But the most important piece is that you respond to it appropriately and quickly to mitigate the threat. So we've done some proactive things to address these. You may have seen what's going on in Chicago with Lollapalooza. They mentioned Las Vegas and the target hardening of their event. We have that as a matter of practice in any of our current events. We supply additional medical folks to our events now. We have Overwatch folks associated with the event, and we do the best we can to limit the ingress and egress of individuals coming and going. So there's a lot of preventive measures that are put in place during events now that we didn't have in place before. And there's a lot of continuance of surveillance and overwatch during the events that we didn't have in place before. So hopefully we meet with success with those preventive measures. And you know, the other piece on that, and it's important for people to understand, we've had a very, very cooperative agreement with local security, private security, and assisting us in all these type of endeavors. And they have changed their profile. And I'll let them speak to their profile to you individually if you reach out to them, but their profile is more robust than it has ever been. So if you're asking me, is Las Vegas a safe community? Yes. Is it a safe tourist community? Yes. And we're only going to get better.
How many of your employees were devoted full-time to this investigation, and now what will they do with the release of this report?
Well, that question was asked by Ricardo in some aspect. I can't give you a definitive number. If you would like us to provide you some sort of approximate number, we can do that after the press conference.
Sheriff Lombardo?
Yes.
Does your final report show any security measures that could have been taken by Mandalay Bay or any personnel there that could have possibly prevented this? Or
No,
do you think
the report doesn't allude to those, any of those. And I'm not going to make public comment on that.
Sheriff, do we have any better sense of when Paddock began planning this attack?
No. You will see in the report, like I said, it includes the timeline associated with the Ogden condominiums. So you can make a leap on your own. And I think it's an easy leap to make, that he may have been evaluating this carnage with that location earlier in the year. Well, when I say early in the year, a couple weeks. You can make that evaluation from what we surmise in the report.
We had talked,
Outside of that timeline, no.
we or you had talked early on about a year earlier, things happening in Mr. Paddock's life a year earlier. Do you see any?
Yeah, that was the giving away of the money to Mary Lou Danley. That was the purchasing of the firearms, the gambling. He wasn't as successful in gambling as he had been in the previous years. So you could put that all together as a package, the comments made by his personal physician. So there's some leaps that have to be made by individuals. But to the best of our recollection as a law enforcement agency and our experience and wherewithal and know-how, I think it's a combination of all that. You will see what is perceived to be a diminishing mental capacity in the report.
How do you mean that?
I said perceived, people's opinions. I think the best answer I can give you is to read the report. Okay? There's summaries provided on what they believe to be Mr. Paddock's mental state. All right. Thank you very much for your time and cooperation. And if you have any clarifying questions that need to be answered, the individual detectives and supervisors and/or the PIO's office can provide you those answers. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me? All right, I'm just going to read through I think the conclusion here. I'll just read it out loud. Get back to it. So on October 1st, 2017, Stephen Paddock committed the largest mass casualty shooting in this country's history. 58 people were killed, approximately 887 people sustained documented injuries. Of those 869 people, 413 sustained a gunshot wound or shrapnel-type injury. While en route to the scene, many investigators heard multiple chaotic emergency-only radio calls coming out in reference to active shooters at different properties along the Las Vegas Strip. Fires breaking out at certain properties, actual shooters that were inside the Las Vegas venue at the time of the shooting. Early reporting from national news outlets reported that ISIS was claiming responsibility for the shooting. The investigation revealed none of this information was accurate. Paddock began stockpiling weapons approximately 1 year prior to the shooting. His behavior began to change according to Danley. Their relationship became very businesslike, and she became almost subservient to him. He began purchasing semi-automatic rifles and hundreds of gun-related items almost daily. Paddock researched various open-air venues, such as Fenway Park, La Jolla Beach, and other open-air concert venues. His internet searches also included biggest open-air concert venues in USA and how crowded does Santa Monica Beach get, and many others. During a stay at Mandalay Bay in September 2017, Danley described Paddock's behavior strange as they were staying in room 60235, and she observed him looking out the windows, which also overlooked the Las Vegas Village venue. She mentioned how he would move around the room looking at the venue from different angles and positions. In late August or September of 2017, Paddock told Danley that she should go to the Philippines and visit her family. Danley traveled to the Philippines, departed on September 15th, and scheduled to return on October 4th. Paddock completed 3 wire transfers during this time, totaling $150,000. Each wire transfer was for $50,000. On October 1st, between 22:05 and 22:16 hours, Paddock fired approximately 1,057 rounds into the crowd at the Las Vegas Village venue down the 100-wing hallway of the 32nd floor and at fuel tanks connected to McCarran Airport, all from inside rooms 32135 and 32134 of Mandalay Bay. At approximately 22:18 hours, heat detection indicators from inside room 32135 indicated there was no more movement from inside the room, leading investigators to believe Paddock was alone and at that point already dead. At approximately 22:57 hours, a strike team led by Sergeant Joshua Bitsko and SWAT officer Levi Hancock breached the interior stairwell door that Paddock had secured with an L bracket. At approximately 23:20 hours, that same strike team breached their way into room 32135 to discover Paddock already dead on the floor with what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head and the revolver Paddock used lying a foot away on the floor. In the days, weeks, and months that followed, there was an exhaustive investigation completed by the LVMPD and FBI into Paddock's life, which resulted in the below-listed findings. Excuse me. Investigative findings. 1. Paddock acted alone. Despite early reports of multiple shooters in different locations, no evidence exists to substantiate any of those reports. Thousands of hours of digital media were reviewed, and after all the interviews were conducted, no evidence exists to indicate Paddock conspired with or acted in collusion with anyone else. This includes video surveillance, recovered DNA, and analysis of cellular phones and computers that belonged to Paddock. 2. No suicide note or manifesto was found. Of all the evidence collected from rooms 32135 and 32134, there was no note or manifesto stating Paddock's intentions. The only handwritten documentation found in either room was the small note indicating measurements and distances related to the use of rifles. 3. There was no evidence of radicalization or ideology to support any theory that Paddock supported or followed any hate group or any domestic or foreign terrorist organization. Despite numerous interviews with Paddock's family, acquaintances, and gambling contacts, investigators could not link Paddock to any specific ideology. 4. Paddock committed no crimes leading up to the October 1st mass shooting. All the weapons and ammunition he purchased were purchased legally. This includes all the purchases Paddock made at gun stores as well as online purchases. Paddock did not commit a crime until he fired the first round into the crowd at Las Vegas Village. That's complete hogwash, since he at least destroyed the windows, which would be vandalism, or destruction, some kind of destruction of property. This would be a crime. That's a I'm sorry, I'm not going to add my comments in here, but that's completely false. Number 5, in reference to the 2,000 investigated leads, 22,000 hours of video, 252,000 images obtained in approximately 1,000 served legal processes, nothing was found to indicate motive on the part of Paddock or that he acted with anyone else. 6. Security Officer Campos was not shot with a BB gun, but rather sustained a gunshot wound from one of the rounds fired by Paddock down the hallway of the 100 wing on the 32nd floor. Security Officer Campos did in fact have a pre-planned vacation to Mexico to go visit his father, and Security Officer Campos asked law enforcement for permission to make this trip. 7. One aspect of the investigation focused on Paddock's financials. Although Paddock's liquid wealth declined prior to October 1st, the investigation proved Paddock was self-funded through his gambling and past real estate transactions. He was indebted to no one and paid all his gambling debts off prior to the shooting. Although investigators were told early on the investigation Although investigators were told early on in the investigation that Paddock had a bank account frozen for high-dollar transfers, it was determined this information was false for the 2 years preceding the incident. Indicators of intent. As stated earlier in this report, investigators were unable to uncover or discover what Paddock's motive may have been. While motive may have eluded investigators, there were certain indicators of intent shown by Paddock which led up to the mass shooting. 1. Paddock had a reservation for a hotel during the Lollapalooza Music Festival held in Grant Park in Chicago, Illinois, during the month of August. Like the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival, the Lollapalooza Festival was held in an open-air venue. Paddock specifically requested a room overlooking the venue, when he made the reservation. That reservation was canceled 2 days prior to the check-in date. 2. Paddock made lodging reservations during the Life is Beautiful music festival held in downtown Las Vegas. The festival was an open-air music venue attended by thousands of people. Paddock requested units overlooking the venue. Paddock reserved 3 different units during the period, and all faced the venue. Paddock was observed in video surveillance transporting several suitcases from his vehicle to the units he reserved. Paddock was alone for the trip and was never accompanied by anyone for more than a casual conversation. Investigators have been unable to determine if Paddock intended an attack during this festival or if he used it as a means to plan a future attack. 3. Paddock conducted several internet searches while planning his actions. Search terms included open-air concert venues, Las Vegas SWAT tactics, weapons, and explosives. Paddock also searched for various gun stores. 4. Paddock purchased over 55 firearms, which were mostly rifles and various calibers, from October 2016 to September 2017. He bought over 100 firearm-related items through various retailers during that period. 5. During a stay in early September 2017, Paddock requested specific rooms that overlooked the Las Vegas Village. According to Danley, Paddock spent time looking at the Las Vegas venue from different angles and windows while inside the room. Alrighty, guys. So, I guess that settles it, right? We're all settled. Everybody agrees with the official narrative, and this settles it for everyone, and we're done here. Or this is the exact thing we kind of expected, right? It's just furthering the official narrative. No mention of any of the other shooting reports on the Strip. No motive found. Great police work done. And the case is still open, for me at least. I mean, I don't think that... I'm going to have to read through this report in full, but, I mean... I think that it's, and Lombardo even said this during the press conference, like they did not get swayed at all from the path that they were headed down for the official narrative. That to me tells me that they closed the case on these Code 4 incidents, you know, where they had shootings at other venues, and they just didn't look into it any further, it doesn't seem. What this kind of makes me think is, one, he said that they had only 2 or 3 more releases left. That's complete hogwash. I mean, it says even in the summary here how much video evidence they took in. We need to get all that video evidence. It's completely unacceptable that they have taken that in as evidence, that it is government records and therefore should be public records according to the court case. It's complete and utter BS that they're not planning on releasing that, and I hope that the Las Vegas Review-Journal lawyers and all of the other news agencies won't take that as their answer. It's complete BS. What else? I mean, the report is a lot longer. It includes kind of a whole bunch of other stuff that we already knew or that we already had. There's a toxicology report. There's the autopsy report on Paddock. It does include the lock interrogation reports, which is great. I'm sure Doug Papa will be ecstatic, especially after being told by Joe Lombardo that would not be released because it was not public record, which is also BS. I'm glad that he released it. I think under that, I think actually the fact that they released the lock interrogation reports could be brought up in the court trial as an example of that they were at least willing to release those, and under that same, I think, argument that they could release all of the evidence that they took in. You know, this is such a fraction of what they actually have. All right, just gonna look through the comments here and see if there's anything else to speak about, excuse me. Paladin says, I can't wait for Aaron's report. Yeah. Well, be prepared to wait for the end of the year. I don't know if you saw the interview with him that came out. It's actually posted on Aces of Wild MMA. Paladin, if you haven't seen it, watch it. And this goes for everybody else. Watch the interview, listen to the interview because it's just audio with Aaron Rouse. But he does back off the date, which they had previously given as a 1-year anniversary, and gave the agency now to the end of the year. So they're saying they'll have the report out by the end of the year, not October 1st anymore. MF, which part, MF, are you talking about to read that part? Yeah, Sandra brought up the guests, the 3 additional names registered to the room. Also doesn't appear on first glance to be mentioned here at all in the report. At least it wasn't mentioned in the summary. I'll have to dig in detail. I plan usually just to kind of go over this once, skim it once, and then go kind of over it again in detail and see if I missed anything. How does one interrogate the lock? The lock that was from Sandra Cook. Thank you for the question. The lock interrogation, or just basically a log. Here, I'll see if I can find it again. It's basically just a log of, here it is. Yeah, it's kind of a dump log of the locks. So the deadbolts in the hotel are digital, meaning they have electronics in them, and they get reported back to some computer system in the hotel or elsewhere, and they just pull those reports for 134 and 135 for the duration of Paddock's stay. I don't know why it's called an interrogation report, because It should just be called deadbolt lock logs or something like that. I don't know where if the word term interrogation really makes sense to me. There are new pictures in here, I noticed. There's actually a number of new pictures. Of course, they're about the same resolution as the ones before, but I'm sure that people will start to dig into these. This is the one that led into the stairwell. You can see in the body cam, this strap, they tied onto the door and then tied onto the stairwell to keep the door open, I believe. I believe that's what that strap is. Not sure what this marking is. All kinds of debris on this door and even on the ceiling up here, it looks like. Actually, yeah, I'm not sure. Is this fingerprint material? I'm not sure. It could be fingerprint dust, but it... How can they ignore FOIA requests? Well, the LVMPD doesn't work off FOIA requests. They work off of NPRA requests, which is the Nevada Public Records Act. They stated that I've seen in multiple instances, although they didn't state this, I didn't see anything directly, that they would not be granting those requests while the evidence is still being released. So if you have requests in Eddie under NPRA through the PIO office, those may be responded to or granted after all the evidence comes out. So that's, I guess, maybe the one thing we have to look forward to, is that they might start actually being able to converse about those FOIA requests, or excuse me, the NPRA requests. FOIA requests have already been declined by the FBI. So those will go to the FBI, warranting an active investigation. The FBI should be responding to those, I think, after the investigation is completed, but it sounds like that might not be till the end of the year. And I'm 100% on board with whatever we need to do as a community to make sure that the evidence in full gets released. There's just no excuse for them to hold on to it, you know what I mean? I can see maybe in the case where it reveals certain police or anti-terrorism tactics, but the NPRA law is very explicit in that they can't not release an entire piece of evidence because of those, because of it reveals some aspect of police tactics. They have to redact it. So they can redact whatever it is that reveals that and then release the evidence, but they can't use that to blanket prevent certain evidence from being released. The judge's orders were pretty clear on the lawsuit for the evidence on how the NPRA should be interpreted or how it was interpreted, and also which requests were being granted. So the lawsuit blanket approved all of the standing requests from the news agencies, of one of which was the CNN's requests. CNN requested everything. So that to me says that everything should be released, and Lombardo's going to be in contempt of court if he tries to prevent release of anything, in my mind. What's up, Brian Baca? How's it going? Jay Gunderson says, do any of you believe Paddock acted alone? I don't know if any of you saw Mr. Burgundy's interview on Titus Frost's YouTube channel last night. If you did not, go watch it. It's great. Mr. Burgundy answered a ton of questions, and many of them were loaded. But one of the questions he was asked was, do you believe Paddock acted alone? You know, I feel the same way, I guess, as Mr. Burgundy does, which is we don't know. We don't know yet. Is it possible? Yes, but there's it's not just that Paddock, shot into the festival. There's a lot that's unsettled on the Strip for me now, especially since I've started delving into like the Bellagio reports. Do I think it's possible Paddock acted alone? Yeah, I actually do think that that's possible. Do I think it's possible Paddock was a part of something much larger? Absolutely. You know what I mean? I don't think either one of those has been proven by the LVMPD, although they've tried their darndest in a way to ignore, I think, all of the evidence that we've looked into, real evidence that that causes us to believe something else might have been, that other people might have been involved. What did I miss? Yeah, Amara Smith. I hope I'm saying that right. I played the entire press conference with Joe Lombardo. He described the release of the final report, which I've got here pulled up on the screen. I've got a link in the description if you want to grab your own copy from the LVMPD's website. It's a PDF. It is 187 pages, and included in that is a bunch of stuff that we already had in the appendix. So the actual report isn't that long, but Joe Lombardo answered some questions and, skirted around others. But you can rewind it back. I also left a link to the actual live stream that was provided by the Review Journal on Facebook, so you can grab your own copy or watch it directly from there if you want a high-res, if you want to view it in higher resolution. Yeah, Las Vegas Shooting Archive said, Wagon Bob, whatever it takes, local request, federal request, lawsuits, we will get it done. Yeah, and I've already said this, I'm not going away. I realize there's some risk in me doing that, but I'm here. I'm not going away until I personally feel that this is resolved for me and for the victims. Until that point, I'm going to be around. I'm going to be around this investigation. I might be one of those people like that started with 9/11 that haven't given up yet. I know there are many in this community that are also involved with that, or JFK assassination, right? So there's, Now, having said that, I hope that we have an answer. It would be nice to have an answer that I feel is sufficient by the FBI by the end of the year, or if we discover something else in this community that makes it, quite obvious that some piece of evidence that shows that Paddock did not act alone. I don't want it to take my entire life, but I'm committed to that. Lombardo himself said he didn't think Stephen Paddock acted alone. Yeah, Don, he said that in one of the early press conferences. Sounds to me like he's changed his tune. And I think when he said that in the press conferences, he was like, if you look at the context, I don't necessarily think he thought somebody else was gunning with him. With Paddock, he seems to be like, think that, he conspired with somebody, told somebody what he was thinking of doing, bought guns with the intention of, from somebody, look at how he bought the armor-piercing ammunition from Douglas Haig in Arizona. There are people that he may have interacted with that he told what he was going to do. There's one person on Twitter that I started looking into that's claiming that he played blackjack with Stephen Paddock and Mary Lou Danley in summer of 2016, and he says that Paddock effectively told him what he was planning on doing in a way. He says that it was revenge, that the casinos were cheating the players, and that he, basically wanted some revenge. I'm obviously paraphrasing here. I don't have perfect recall memory. Not even in the least. But I might actually post something about that here soon. I think somebody should probably interview that guy. It's speak with him about it. His name is, let me see if I can pull it up here. Rodney Peterson. CL says, I thought 134 wasn't in his name. Actually, I think the lock interrogation reports say who checked into the room. So let's take a look at 134 and lock interrogation and see what it says. Might be interesting. Because somebody said that it was registered under Mary Lou Danley, right? Where are those reports? All right, so lock interrogation 32-134. It does look like it was Stephen Paddock. So Stephen Paddock, guest card accepted, has his name on it. Stephen Paddock, issued by Jay Wheeler. I don't know what this means. And it has a user ID here. Somebody actually might be able to, I don't know, I'm just thinking of all the people on 4chan that once they get like the, I think might be his player card number. I don't know. Somebody might be able to dig into that. So, yeah, half an hour before that, card had been canceled. So it looks like this might have been staff card accepted. So they cleaned the room at noon on September 29th. It looks like that's what I would guess this is, cleaning the room. And then it took them 2 hours. I guess it's a giant room. The door is closed. Yeah, so they went in and out of the room from noon to 2. Staff went in and out. But it does look like it has Stephen Paddock's name on it, at least from there. And then let's see, so 134, 10-1. So the deadbolt was thrown. So, this actually tells you the door is closed and the deadbolt was thrown. So 9:47 p.m. on 32-134. And then the door, that's really it, I guess. And then the next entry in here is 7:33 a.m., 10-2, ping from the server. Maybe it lost connection. I think that's what that might mean. 32-135. So 32-135, let's see. So guest card accepted 9:25, 5:02 p.m. Stephen Paddock. That one has his name on it as well. And then that was closed. He had that room for longer, so there's a lot more, many more entries in here. So 10-1, 9:36 p.m. was the last entry in on that. So the door is closed and the deadbolt was thrown. Interesting here is it says the door was closed at 9:33 and then the door was opened from the inside to let somebody in, to let somebody out, and then the door was closed, and then so it looks like he was already in the room, and then he opened the door from the inside and then closed the door, locked the door. Interesting. Wonder what happened right there when it was open from the inside. What the reason for that was. Just to peek down the hallway, to set up the camera on the cart. No, because that was coming out of 132, 134, right? Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if the room, so there's two different things that happen with a hotel room, right? One, there's the name that the room gets registered under, right? And then there's the player's card that gets associated with the room. I suspect that those can be two different names, so it is possible that the room is registered under Stephen Paddock, but then it had Mary Lou Danley's player's card associated with it. I think that might be possible, so that might be why we see his name here for both rooms, but then if the player's card under the room was Mary Lou Danley's, why that was mentioned previously. Yeah, go start it in, yeah, on 4chan, Las Vegas Shooting Archive. For those of you that aren't aware already, just a little plug here, we will be doing an interview, myself, Bob, and Las Vegas Shooting Archive, along with Renee Downs on Tuesday evening. And I'll be all about the Bellagio incident. So they'll be on live stream. We'll have a bunch of you, hopefully in chat, to join us. And we're going to really dig in deep into Renee Downs' story, which has been actually reported on a bunch. And she's done a bunch of interviews. But we are going to we do have some new information. And I don't want to give too much away, but we have some new visual items to share, I guess would be the best way to say it, that haven't previously been seen. You hear traffic in the background, Haunted? Yeah, I have my window open here, and I live near a street. Yeah, I actually thought of that, Don. Was the user ID different for 932 and 933? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, and then this one down here. So maybe that indicates he had 2 key cards, and maybe this is the key card number, right? And so he had 2 cards. You know, almost always when I've stayed in Vegas, even if I'm just alone, they always give me 2 cards, unless I ask specifically for one. Or sometimes they will ask, I guess, how many do you want? I usually get 2 anyway, because I like to have one as a backup. Just in case I accidentally leave one in the room, I leave one in my wallet. So these might have been 2 different key cards that he used, but why would he have used 2 different ones? 929 and 932. Maybe he was trying to make it look like both key cards have been used. I don't know. Maybe it was one of the 3 women registered to his room. Who knows? You're permabanned from 4chan. Awesome. Time to set up a VPN. Las Vegas Shooting Archive. You lost audio? Let me check. Audio. Looks like it's still transmitting. Yeah. Did they release the door lock data? Amara asks. I don't know what time that was because it doesn't timestamp these comments here on my screen, but yes, they did. That's what I have pulled up on the screen right now. AKA the lock interrogation reports. AKA one of Doug Papa's favorite topics as of late. I think it sounds like Las Vegas Shooting Archive is getting hacked right now. Says he got banned from 4chan and then he loses audio. I hope his computer makes it out alive. All right, what else? I'm scrolling back through the questions here. Let me see how many people are still on stream here. I don't want to like have this go too long. 41 watching, it says. Okay, all right. We'll keep going for a little bit if everybody's down to keep chatting. Sounds like Lombardo's coming for you, Wig. No, not for me. That would be for LVSA. I'm not getting hacked. I've got a plan for that also, I should mention, Bob. I've without revealing too much. Nothing illegal, of course. Who drank the wet bar dry in 134, Jeff asks. What's the evidence for that, Jeff? Is there those little bottles, or are there a bunch of empty ones, or what are you using for that? I think in the Mandalay Bay, the bottles are inside of a fridge, at least from what I've seen, in the wet bar. Hi, Charlton. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Learn from the best. But what did the door lock say? I went over it, Amara, if you want to scroll back. We dug into the lock interrogation reports a little bit. They're, I think, Appendix A in the report, if I'm not mistaken, or close to there. Let me see. Lock interrogation reports. Yeah, Appendix A, page 128 on the report, if you want to review it. We kind of dug into that a little bit. You just came in. You can actually scroll back on the live stream. You should be able to. Or you can watch it later, or you can check out the report. I have posted links to the report and to the Joe Lombardo's press conference in the description. Huh. Don's saying the other user ID unsuccessfully tried to open the door. Maybe the card wasn't swiping properly or something like that. Or maybe it was, you know, something else. Pull the lock interrogation report up here again. It says 32-135, 10-1. Oh, I see what you're saying. So, okay, so at 9:29, okay, so 6:50 p.m. we'll just the deadbolt was thrown. Okay, 9:29, the deadbolt is open from the inside. 9:29, deadbolt released. So the deadbolt was unlocked basically. 9:29, guest card accepted. Huh. 9:29, the door is closed. 9:32, error, no access to this room. This is trying to use the key card ending in 965. Tries again, 965, no access to this room. The door is opened from the inside. So somebody attempted to use from the outside, because that's the only place you can use one of the cards, to use one of the cards twice, and it didn't open. And then the door was open from the inside. We're going to have to dig into this more in detail, but this does look somewhat suspicious to me. It does look like there was more than one person involved, because somebody tried to access from the outside using this key card. It didn't work, and then the door was open from the inside. It could have just been, you know, if Paddock acted alone, it could have just been him testing the door, testing one of the key cards, who knows. But it is interesting. Is there any way of understanding the integrity of the lock report, Bob asks. I mean, I would just expand that to, is there any way to understand the integrity of any of the evidence listed in this report? Because not very much of it, right? We don't, these are screenshots of a report. The photos are a reduced resolution version of the photos. Yeah. I'm still waiting for like the holy grail piece of evidence that shows either way, what happened. Somebody had to have zoomed in on the room during the shooting, But who knows? The windows are very, highly reflective, and if somebody's sitting in the dark, who knows what they would have seen. Hi, Farmers for Truth. Just catching up on the comments here, guys. Eddie asks, who's that guy he was selling guns to? His name is Douglas Haig out of Mesa, Arizona. I believe that trial is still, last I checked, it was continually being pushed back. Katie, Joanne, Laura, or Danley. Yeah, it could have been any one of the 5 people that were registered in some way or another to the rooms, right, Bob? That's funny. Don said, I couldn't figure out who makes that lock from the pics alone. I mean, I don't think they've changed out all the locks in the Mandalay Bay. Somebody could go there and inspect them. When I was there, I think in January, I did take some photos of the door, but I don't think I got a close-up of the lock. I was mostly interested in the windows at the time. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be difficult. Don says maybe not, but we can possibly determine if it's been doctored, if it shows something we discover to be impossible. Yeah, I mean, that's always a good, I think, perspective to take on some of the evidence, is that we might not be able to validate it, but we might be able to invalidate it, right, in some way. So it's a good approach to take to analyze something, is to say how can we invalidate, or what's invalid in this or impossible in this that might make it not actual evidence. Thanks for saying that, Farmers for Truth. Appreciate it. Thanks for all that you do as well, man. Really appreciate it. Yeah, if you're not a moderator and you're trying to post a link, you won't be able to. I think that might be what's happening. So I think that goes for email addresses as well. So you just put some spaces in it. I don't know how to stop that from happening. I've basically put my channel to the lowest security settings overall. Like as far as comments go, anybody can comment anything and stuff still gets marked as spam. Especially Brian, what's his last name? Man, because Brian's awesome. As soon as the evidence comes out, he'll a lot of times he'll go in there and he'll tag like the timestamps. But for some reason, that almost always triggers the YouTube spam filtering. I have to go in there and approve his comments. But he's awesome to do that. I mean, you'd have to do a lot of trolling on my channel to get blocked. But if you're, I usually won't just block you. I'll just report you if you're going against YouTube's like terms of service and guidelines. That's really what it takes. So, you know, I'm talking about abusing people or, you know, hate speech, all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that won't fly. But if you criticize me, I'll welcome that. I think that that's a healthy thing and I can take it. And you know. I think that censorship is, I'm highly against censorship, I guess, would be the best way to say it. Even if somebody says something in jest, I think it has value. Like if somebody comes in and jokingly says, let me try to think of an example. Well, like, you guys are idiots and it was definitely helicopters. You know what I mean? I think that there are other people out there that feel that way too, and that do think that, and I think that it starts a conversation. So I think that there's just value in almost everything everyone has to say, some more than others. M-Life card is a player's card, yeah. So these would be, I think MGM is M-Life cards. I'm now thinking that these are actually without going too much into my history, I think these are actually barcode magnetic swipe values on the cards themselves. I don't think it's a player's card now that I think about it a little bit more. So it's probably not the M-Life card unless those can be used to access the door. I don't know if they can or not. I've never tried when I've been at a MGM hotel. Usually they just issue you the key cards from the check-in desk. You should make me. I did make you a moderator, Bob. That's why you have a tool by your name now. A wrench, we should say. I'm not calling you a tool. Thanks to everyone for keeping the ball rolling. Yep. 11:20 p.m. The door is open from the inside. Yeah, this is after the breach, isn't it? Or right at the time of the breach. So who knows? Actually, I think this is when the breach happened, right? So who knows how how their system read when the breach happened, and then of course the door is left open too long. Hey, look, they do get notifications when doors are open for too long. Interesting. But not when windows are broken, apparently. Like naked kittens, Weg? Aren't all kittens naked? Or most kittens, MF? Yeah, I don't know if that's adding specific value. I'm going to have to block you, man. I'm just kidding. How can they say there's no evidence for more than one person with the lock log mess? Oh, I read that as Loch Ness at first. On 932 and 933, which requires more people to do. Yeah, I think we need to step through this in detail more. When I'm live streaming, my brain doesn't work on all cylinders because I've got other things kind of passing through it. So I think this needs to be analyzed. Like, is this even possible for one person to have done? And if not, what happened? If it's not possible for one person to have done, then we need an explanation, right, as to who was at the door. And they might not know. I mean, they don't have cameras in those hallways, so. But of course, that would warrant additional investigation, interview of people that were staying in the hotel that night, review of the other security footage. Whoever is God, will I get blocked? I mean, God of what? God of helicopters? I'm going to have to agree with you on that one, MF. Called 911 to say they were shot or saw shooting. Greg, do you feel glancing over this report, but has it more new things to check? Did they reveal cam footage of the other casinos? Yes, it does have some additional information in the report. I mean, it depends on your interest level. I think that for me, it's worth reading. For certain. There's information in here. Well, there's new pictures. I think that's something interesting to check out. And then there's the information. The conclusion here was interesting. I read that earlier. I read through that earlier on the stream. If anything, at least gives you the official narrative that they're sticking with. It gives you a little bit more clarity on LVMPD's narrative. I believe Patsy Paddock was on fairy dust. Is that a drug? Is that like angel's dust? Or like, is that something out of Peter Pan? Amara asks, are there statements for witnesses more than what we had? I'll kind of scroll to the table of contents here so you can, and we'll just go through each section here if you want. So table of contents, they've got an executive summary, a list of the people involved, including victims, suspects, and witnesses, an incident overview, and so this talks about the Ogden, Mandalay Bay, and Route 91 Harvest Music Festival. What is this leaving out? What happened to the Bellagio? What happened at Planet Hollywood? What happened to the Paris? I guess that wasn't part of the incident. The investigation is the other section, has a timeline, detailed overview, and interview summaries. So these might be interesting to look through. These are all civilian interviews. So yeah, these are brand new. I don't think they might have actually been released though as part of the evidence. So I don't want to say they're brand new, but they're new to the FIT report for sure. Police personnel, investigative responsibilities, a list of those from the FBI, ATF, Nevada Gaming Control Board, Henderson Police Department, Las Vegas Metro Police Department, information about the Las Vegas Village, information about Mandalay Bay 32nd floor, Hunter Wing Hallway. Yeah, so I'm not going to read every one of these, but there's a bunch of information about different areas, including Paddock's residences. Evidence recovery from different areas, information about ammunition, firearm forensics. I think this might be new. I'm not sure. I think it is. Lock interrogations. I actually want to check this out here in just a second because this is not the one from the appendix. This is something else. DNA, digital, cellular phones, financial analysis. Suspectologies, so these are all the different people they looked into, I guess, as possible suspects. Firearms, and under suspects, Paddock's primary care physician. This might actually have been for them to develop, I guess, a profile of the suspect. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what that means. Firearms, search warrants and legal process, Paddock's autopsy, and then the conclusion. And then the appendices. Let me look at where this said lock interrogations. I want to see. Okay, just a summary of the lock interrogations. Yeah, so it does talk about these. So 32135 showed open from the inside at 2320. That's 1120. this was the time that the door was breached. So yeah, what I was saying, it looks like what was their findings as well. The only key card used to open the door from the outside was issued to Paddock. Because it looks like there were 2 key cards that tried to access the room. Any chance that one of the key cards that tried to access the room was Mr. Jesus Campos? I don't know if the security guards have, I think some of the security guards have the master keys, right? Where they can open any door. All right, I'm getting back to the comments here. It was Hillary Clinton at the door, Tony says. Will we ever know about the 3 women? I'm not sure, Jeff. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe we won't know about the 3 women, but I would like an answer from the LVMPD about, because they stated that it was a computer glitch with no detail, you know, of course. So where's the evidence? Where's the evidence of that? That's what I'd like to see next in regards to the 3 women. What about those noise complaints that supposedly came from Paddock's room? I understand he was in Mesquite at the time. Yeah, I've heard that too, Karen. I haven't drilled deeply into that. I am curious about that too, if somebody wants to research that in depth. If Paddock was I think that was from the preliminary fit report. I'm curious if that still stands here, that it shows that the noise complaints came from a time when he was actually listed in another section as not being in the hotel at the time. Maybe it was the 3 women. Maybe it was Bryant Hodge. Who knows? He was not. Oh, okay. Las Vegas Shooting Archive says he was not in Mesquite during the complaints. Okay. It sounds like you've looked into it. No mention of Paddock gunshot wound in the chest report. Where did the blood come from on his chest in the image? Yeah, Gary's asking about the blood on the chest in the photos. And actually, we've got a new photo of Paddock here that I hadn't seen before in the report. Let me see if I can get back to it. You know, I think the LVMPD's response to that would be that the blood was from the only single, you know, they say that there was a single wound to his head, right through the mouth. Where's that new photo? Okay, it's a little bit gory, but I'm gonna try to not show all the gore here. But if we look at the chest, how did this blood get here on the chest? That's the question. Was it from a wound? Was it from coughing while still alive? Was he originally slumped over and then fell back? Not sure. I'm not going to leave that up on the screen, by the way. I haven't had lunch yet. Okay, I'm a little bit behind on comments, guys. I'm really sorry. I'm gonna skip through a little bit here. If I miss your question and you really want it brought up, don't give up. Just a reminder, like Don David Sternman is doing, if you put an @ and then start to type in the person's name, it will allow you to select their name, and then it highlights their name on their screen. So it might not look highlighted on your screen when he says @WegOg, but it's highlighted on my screen. So it helps to call out your comment a little bit better when you do that. Yeah, I'm not sure when I don't recall off the top of my head when he registered 134, Don, but you might be right about that the lock interrogation report starts. Maybe he didn't actually enter the room. Maybe he like registered it the day before, over the phone or whatever, added it to his reservation, and then didn't actually open it till the next day. Maybe that triggers the report to start picking it up. I'm not sure. The LVMPD PIO will neither confirm nor deny the other women there, Bob says. I thought that they had confirmed that it was a computer glitch. I thought somebody had confirmed that with the PIO. One of the news agents. No, maybe it wasn't a news agency, but maybe one of the reporters. If you hear squeaking in the background, that's because my dog thinks it's playtime right now. Come here. I didn't see a vibrator listed in the inventory, says Jen Sowers. Yeah, Mr. Burgundy was talking about that yesterday on Titus Frost's stream. The vibrator was a Hitachi, according to Sleep Depth, Hitachi massager, based on the look of the cord, is what I heard. And Jen, I think you're saying that you looked on the inventory here on the new report and you didn't see it. That's very interesting. How are they looking at his brain? It's blown out. Well, actually, I think that most of it stayed inside. I think most of that, what you see on the image, is blood. That's why there's no brain matter on the floor. The autopsy is included in here, Ricky, so if you want to look through it, I think it describes that wound, the fatal wound. Let me see if we're still going strong here. $50. Oh, we're actually more people watching now. All right, well, and for anybody that's new, I'll just keep going. If you guys want to keep going, I'll just keep going for a little while. Let me see how long we're at right now. How long we've been going. An hour and 35 minutes. I'll probably go a little bit longer. Since we're having some good discussion in the chat, and then the last thing I want to do is waste anybody's time. So, and I also want it to be somewhat purposeful. But I think we're just having a discussion right now, which I think is great. Squeaky toy, yeah. I have a big dog, but not as big as In serves. I think he has like a Great Dane or like I don't know. Definitely not a dog you want to turn on you. Bob, you said I haven't seen the claim that it was a computer glitch. Remind me about that. I'll try to find it. It was LVMPD that claimed it was a computer glitch. And I think it was to one of the reporters. I can't remember who, though. It might have been Laura Loomer. I'm not 100% on that, though. Anything about the last two shots? Asks Tesha McGallagher. I haven't looked through the report in detail yet, so there might be something new in here. Not that I've seen yet, but really only skimmed through it. We can look at some of the additional photos here while looking through the comments. Yeah, some of the questions, guys, are specific questions about the report. I haven't read it yet, so although I would love to answer your questions, I haven't had a chance to read it in detail yet. So, you know, I'll do that as soon as I can, and then maybe we can chat further about it on another stream or something. And just a reminder, we're going to be live streaming on Tuesday night with Renee Downs, who was one of the witnesses at the Bellagio when shooting occurred there after 11 p.m. That'll be Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, with Bob Whittlefish, and I hope I'm saying that right, Bob, or Bob Johnson, whatever you want to go by, and then also Las Vegas Shooting Archive. So the four of us will be on there, and we're going to drill into the Renee story. Maybe hopefully we go deeper than anybody else into that story, and then we'll also reveal some new stuff that she's provided that previously hasn't been seen yet. Eddie here, if Eddie's still around, helped a lot on sourcing. Actually, a lot of people have really helped. A lot putting that together, making that happen. So thank you, for all those that have been involved up to this point. Yeah, if the inventory doesn't contain a vibrating massager, or it has to be something that would be seen by the cops, is that right? Or at least one cop. Let's do a little search here. Massage, nothing. Vibrate, nothing. Inventory, evidence. So here's a list of all the evidence from 135. We've got the L bracket, 2 surveillance cameras from the room, bullet fragments, all of the guns. Colt M4, all of the guns. Another gun that was sitting on the chair at the bump stock. Here's the revolver with 1 expended cartridge. Another gun, the one under paddock, the one over the leg. Another gun, another gun, another gun, another gun. Many guns. Here we go. Blue plastic hose, surveillance camera, baby monitor camera not mounted, another surveillance camera, small sledgehammer, laptop computer, surveillance camera monitor, spotting scope, binoculars, expended casings, cellular phones, Nevada driver's license, M-Life player's card for Mary Lou Danley. Hey, anybody want to guess why she didn't take her player's card with her? Usually people would keep that in their wallet or their purse, right? Polymer, magazines, gun magazines, live ammunition, handwritten note with the bullet drop calculations, and suitcases, duffel bags, soft rifle case, and towels. They go to the extent to mention towels, but no vibrator. But I don't know if that was in the room, so let's look in the room. Laptop computer in the room. Whoops. Where did I get to? Bedroom suite. Okay. Laptop computer on bed. So this is in the bedroom in the suite. So the laptop, the disassembled laptop computer missing the hard drive, power hand drills, empty ammunition boxes, scuba mask, loose ammunition, miscellaneous hand tools, and drill bits. I mean, I guess a vibrator could be considered a hand tool, but I don't know. Miscellaneous screws and mounting brackets, suitcases and towels, empty rifle magazines, and then guns. Laptop computer connected to the hallway surveillance camera, magazines, and expended casings. I don't know. Anybody want to guess which one of those things is the what they thought was a vibrator? Or did they just leave it off? Because it doesn't support the narrative. Yeah, I mean, remember Bruce Paddock suspected on the Hidden Truth show that, or speculated that that Paddock's motive was hookers and blow. And we have, you know, some evidence which might believe people to speculate. We have some evidence that might lead us to speculate that the three women were, you know, prostitutes, especially since prostitutes were being booked at the time of the shooting. Paddock orders prostitutes. Prostitutes get caught by the cops, don't go up to Paddock's room. Paddock goes ballistic. Who knows? Yeah, thanks, Farmers. Yeah, for anybody that wants to see the press conference or look at the document themselves, as Farmers for Truth said, there are links in the descriptions of this video. I also posted it to my Twitter, the PDF document. You can follow me on Twitter at Nostradamus. Yeah, Tesha, I mean, curious why 2 shots and only 1 wound. If you want to know what I think about that, I'll share with you what I think about that, which is I don't think the last 2 shots, I don't think that either one of the last 2 shots were the suicide shot. The reason for that is, 1, they sound exactly the same. They sound like the shots from the rifle, from the .308 rifle. So the mystery is, if those shots sound exactly the same, how are we to believe that one, and I think they're 10 seconds apart. Yeah, they are. They're 10 seconds apart. So we're to believe that one of those was the rifle and the other one was the pistol, and they sound exactly the same? No, I just don't buy it. So I think either one of 2 things is possible, given that. Either that the suicide shot happened before the last 2 shots, so the shot from the pistol happened before the first 2 shots, which supports, you know, that the theory that Paddock was maybe killed or, you know, involved in something else, or that we just haven't found the final shot yet. I think somebody did post on YouTube or maybe Twitter that they had heard maybe a different shot. I'm not yet convinced of that, but I would like to find if there was another shot after what are considered the last 2 shots. You know, the pistol being likely being inside the room and not pointing out the window, you know, logic would lead me to believe that it would sound differently from the outside, or maybe even be muffled more, especially if the curtains were closed. So it may not even be able to have been picked up by cell phones outside. But, you know, the officers inside the stairwell, you'd think that they would hear it to some extent. Mary Lou states that he wasn't able to perform anymore. I think that, are you, Jen, I think you might be referring to the report in whatever that UK tabloid is from a prostitute that said it. I don't think, did Mary Lou say that? Maybe she did. Would someone need a, MF asks, would someone need a flashlight to navigate those rooms at Mandalay Bay at night? Absolutely. I mean, most Mandalay Bay rooms, if the lights are out, yes. Most Mandalay Bay, or excuse me, most Vegas hotel rooms have blackout curtains. So it gets very dark in there if the curtains are closed. Oh, the Las Vegas Shooting Archive says the vibrators are listed in the federal warrants as personal massagers too. Okay. Why were they left out of the LVMPD report then? Why? When we get the final report from the FBI, it's going to be interesting to compare these two. I'm guessing that they're the FBI report. I mean, if you listen to the interview with Aaron Rouse that came out recently, they had over 1,000 agents work the case, have had 1,000 agents work the case. They've interviewed thousands of people in 25 plus countries because Stephen Paddock traveled so much. That report going to be long, people. Like, I'm expecting that report. Let's see, this is 187 pages. I would venture to guess. Now, this is completely just a guess on my part with absolutely no evidence for it. But I'm going to guess that it's going to be about 10 times this length. And be a lot more thorough too. All right, I'm just kind of trying to catch up on the comments here, guys. Does the report discuss the accidental discharge shot from Metro? Yes, if I'm assuming this one does because the preliminary report did mention that. It was a SWAT officer, not Levi, as had been reported. Well, in one of the body cams, the officer says that it was Levi that discharged his weapon, which was actually turned out not to be true. It was the other SWAT officer whose name escapes me at the moment. And I believe it was a 3-round burst. You do not need a vibrator to mix tannerite. How do you know that, Farmers for Truth? I want to. When's the video for that coming out? That's hilarious. Amara says, Weg, don't you think we should have seen Paddock close the curtains and light changes? If he shot himself, curtains were closed when breached. I mean, we couldn't even tell that the windows were shattered. So no, I don't think that we would be able to. Now, if somebody had turned on the light inside there, a bright light with the drapes open, then yeah, I think we would have maybe been able to see that, but I don't think so. I think with the dark room, you're not gonna be able to tell if the curtains are closed or opened unless the lights are on. How was the door blocked from 134 to 135? The door was closed. So just in case anybody isn't aware of how the doors between the rooms work, there are actually handles only on either side. So there are 2 doors, and they can only be opened from the inside. Each door can only be opened from the inside of either room. So somebody, in order to open both doors, would actually have to go between, prop one door open and then go to the other door and open the other door and leave them both propped to pass between them. Adjoining doors, that's what they're called. I've lost trust. It's talking about the running out of money revenge theory. Yeah, I mean, if this new report actually mentions Paddock's finances, and one of the things it says is that he made his money from, yeah, it makes no mention basically that he had lost a crap ton of money. I mean, Paddock was an accountant by trade, right? So, like, money management was likely not a problem for him. And he had multiple properties, all that stuff. I don't remember where that was, but it's in here. It's called Paddock's Finances or something like that. Financial analysis. Oh, it does say, okay. A financial analysis was completed on Paddock and revealed a large decrease in financial liquidity. Investigators found 14 bank accounts associated with Paddock. In September 2015, his bank accounts totaled just under $2.1 million. By contrast, in September 2017, the amount in accounts had dropped to $530,000, which, with most of the decline occurring in 2017. Oh, okay. When I read it in the conclusion, I hadn't actually read this part yet. The conclusion didn't go into such detail. So over $600,000 was paid to casinos, approximately $130,000 was associated with Danley, and over $170,000 was paid to credit card companies. Paddock made almost $95,000 in firearms and gun-related purchases. One of the last checks Paddock wrote was to the IRS for over $13,000. You know, there's that theory that if it was ISIS related that he wanted to pay off his debts, I guess that's something that ISIS jihadists do. I don't know if there's been any further evidence of that, though, other than ISIS claiming responsibility for it multiple times. Yeah, he did research crowded beaches, ashes, ashes, all fall down. Many crowded venues, including those outside of Las Vegas. So, I mean, was he paying back specifically the MGM? Did he like to go to crowded places? Did he like country music? The FBI is going to be doing they did a whole behavioral analysis that took, I think, a lot of people. I'm trying to remember what they said, but it was very extensive. So that should be included with the FBI's report, which is due out now by the end of the year. I don't think the lock interrogation reports show the adjoining rooms. And I think that's actually one of the things that, let's look here, but I don't think they do. I think that's one of the things that Doug Papa was looking for. Yeah, I think this is just, okay, door unit internal, guest. So I think when this is guest, that is actually the card swipe, and then door unit internal is the door closing sensor, and then the door locking sensor. trying to confirm that here. Deadbolt, yeah, door unit internal. But guest MC, I think, represents when a key card was tried to swipe, was attempted to swipe. And I'm not sure what MC stands for. Magnetic card? Could be. Okay, guys, we're running at right about 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and shut the stream down. Really appreciate everybody joining. Just a reminder, Tuesday night we'll be live streaming myself, Bob, Las Vegas Shooting Archive, and Renee Downs. So if you're around, would love for you to join us. Ask questions. We'll be doing some Q&A that evening as well. Really do appreciate it, and really appreciate everybody joining. Looking forward to everybody's analysis of the both the press conference and the LVMPD final report. I guess have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again soon.